Today I'm going to be answering the question, how to title my California real property. Hi, I'm Greg with the Ashcraft firm, and today we're going to be talking about how to title your property here in California. So how do you title property in California? There's a number of ways that I have listed here, and I'll draw them out so that you can see how it is that each one of them works. The first one, and this is the one that the law presumes about property that you hold, is that you can hold your property as tenants in common. And so if you put nothing as far as titling goes, the law is going to assume that you want to hold that property as tenants in common. And what that means is if you, let's say you and your brother own a property and you own it as 50% share tenant in common. That means you each own 50% of that property. That means each of you can do whatever you want with your 50% of the property. Meaning you can transfer that property to somebody else, or you can transfer this to a trust or something like that. And then if you pass away and you've done nothing to it, it's in your name and tenants in common, then that's going to actually go to probate court, and your portion of that property is going to be distributed the way the court says so. So that's one way to hold property as tenants in common. Another really common way is to hold your property as joint tenants. And the benefit of joint tenancy, if you write this out, it's called joint tenants with rights of survivorship. And rights of survivorship means if you pass away, your portion of that property goes to the surviving person. So if you hold that property again, but now you hold it as joint tenants, instead of you each owning half, both of you own all of it. Okay, so if you and your brother own property as joint tenants, then each of you own both of them. All right, and the benefit of that is if one of you passes away, and if you wanted that property to go to your brother when you pass away, then it does that automatically. Okay, you have to file an affidavit of death of joint tenant, but you don't have to go through like a court situation and everything like that. It just automatically passes. Now, a lot of people, married couples here in the state of California, hold their property as joint tenants. There are downsides to holding property this way. One of the main downsides is taxes. Okay, now when you buy a property, let's say you bought a property in the year 2000. Okay, so your property tax basis, let's say that you bought it for $400,000 in the year 2000. So your property tax basis is roughly $400,000 in that property. If it went up in 2020 to $800,000, which wouldn't be out of the normal realm of possibility, you have $400,000 here that could potentially be taxed at capital gains rates. Now, if you hold it as joint tenants, then you have the same basis in that property. Now, community property operates differently. If you are married, you can hold property as community property, and if one of you passes away, what happens is they say, okay, well, how much is this property worth when one of you passes away? Let's say one of you passed away in the year 2020. Then they said, okay, this is worth $800,000. That's the new property tax basis. So let me calculate to show you how different that would be. So if you had to pay capital gains tax on about $400,000, it's going to be about 25% plus here in the state of California, because we have both federal and state taxes, which means that you would pay 25 times 4 or $100,000 in taxes. That's just a rough estimate. Now there are ways that you can increase or decrease that or whatever based on how you file your taxes, but if you hold it as community property, you get that step up in basis when one person passes away, which means you would not pay anything in taxes. So you just saved $100,000 by owning your property as community property. Okay, now this brings me to the next way you can hold property. And this has the benefits, the tax benefits of community property and the rights of survivor benefits of the joint tenancy. So this is community property with right of survivorship. And this hasn't been around forever, but it has the tax benefit. It gets that step up in basis, okay? So if one of you passes away, the other one can sell the property. And even if you had a tax basis that was this low, it was only half of the property. When one of you passes away, it gets a full step up in basis, so you have to pay 0 in taxes. But also we have the rights of survivorship here with this community property with rights of survivorship. And that means that this not only gets the tax benefit, but it's passed without any court. So you don't have to pay any court fees and you don't have to pay any taxes. So if you're married, this is the second best way to title your property. And I say the second best because the very best way to hold property is in trust. Because this can avoid probate court for your spouse, but it cannot avoid probate court for your beneficiaries, for your kids, for your charities. If you hold your property in trust, you can title the property in any way. So let's say that you hold your property as community property. You have all the tax benefits that has. And then let's say you take that community property with right of survivorship and transfer it into a trust. Now you have all the tax benefits that we talked about here. It passes without any probate court to your spouse, but then it can also pass without any court to your beneficiaries. And you can even set it up so that it will pass down without probate to, let's say, your grandkids. And it can keep going. Now, there are further benefits to holding property in trust that don't deal with avoiding court and don't deal with avoiding negative tax consequences. Like, you can also set up plans so that it protects in case of remarriage. So that means if you're married and one spouse passes away and the other one gets remarried, we can require a prenup be signed and things like that. It can also protect your kids' inheritance from any of their creditors. So protects kids' inheritance. And another thing we didn't talk about up here that's a benefit of holding property in trust is, let's say you're not passing away. Let's say you have incapacity issues, right? You don't have your mental faculties about you. This can plan for that as well. So no matter how you title your property here, if something happens to you and you have no mental capacity, then you're going to have to go to court. You're going to have to go to probate court anyway to deal with that. So there's a lot of expenses and things like that. So this can also deal with your property if you have incapacity issues. Okay? And there are other benefits to this too. You have a lot of control over your property. It's all private. So here it's all in the chain of title. So the way this passes, everybody knows. But here, it's all private. So the only people that know are the people that you've selected in your trust. So there are lots of benefits to holding it in trust, but the second best way if you're a married couple is to hold it as community property with right of survivorship. So if you haven't set up a trust yet, typically that's the way to hold it. Now, this isn't legal advice. I am a lawyer, but I can't give you legal advice because I don't know your situation. So if you want to know more about that, then you can contact us and we can actually talk to you about what's going on with your situation and talk to you about which way is the best way to hold property. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Greg with the Ashcraft Firm. And as always, if you have any more questions or anything like that, feel free to call us, set up an appointment if you're here in California. If you don't live in California, you live in another state, then I would recommend finding an estate planning attorney in your area to discuss about these issues, because there are all different tax ramifications and all different ways to title your property if you live in a different state, especially a state that does not have community property laws. So again, I'm Greg with the Ashcraft Firm, and if you have any questions and you live here in California, please reach out. Also, subscribe, like our video, give us a thumbs up, support our page. Thanks so much.